Hi, how are you? Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is continuing our Vincent van Gogh flowers. So we should be coloring them today. So when we're looking at the Vincent van Gogh flowers, we notice that it's predominantly like a mustard yellow. So you can either create that using a yellow color pencil mixed with a bit of a lighter brown. And if it's dark brown, make it super light. The inside of this will be a brown. We're just gonna go ahead and try to go for it. Okay, so the vase, before we get started, we kind of want to leave the vase simple, and we might end up using something other than a beige, but we want to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to color parts of it on the top yellow so that that could be a little bit brighter than the rest. You want to, Vincent van Gogh, what he did, like a lot of other artists, he kind of mixed his colors. He didn't really use just one color on something. Even his blue background would have maybe a few different, either a little bit of white, a little bit of gray, some blue in there. And I'm gonna go, I actually have something that looks sort of like a caramel yellow, but I'm gonna go ahead and color this a little tiny bit lighter. So I'm pressing harder on the top, the part that's closest to the middle, and I'm going a bit lighter on the tips. What I want you guys to do is make sure that you guys are bringing in your work. So that will save us a lot of time. If you bring in your work, then we can easily assemble it. Okay, so I'm going a little bit darker on the top. You don't have to go that way. You can go a little bit, do it the opposite way. That's actually what I was aiming for, and then I ended up doing differently. And I want to kind of see those lines. So when I'm doing it, I want to see those lines because you could really see his brush strokes. Remember when we were learning about him, we learned that he used like loads of paint and he would just like kind of smack it on, and it would kind of, if you look at some of his paintings close up, if you have that opportunity, you'll notice that the paint isn't like a flat, smooth thing. You can really see texture in his paint. I'm gonna go back with that yellow. And with this in the middle, I'm gonna go for a dark chocolate brown. Now tomorrow, or actually the next day that we meet, we're gonna be painting. So what we will do is we'll be adding some paint with thin brushes, hopefully, and add a little bit of pointillism over here. And we'll be doing that probably with a lighter brown. So it's important that we just go as dark brown as we can, chocolate brown, not black, obviously, and then we can do some paint and just add a little bit more touches to it. So I'm going to kind of zoom into this so you can see how that looks. You can really see that the yellow is not just yellow, and it's like you can see those brush strokes. Now, just going over one thing really important. Over here, you can see that I outlined everything with a black marker. I don't want you to do that. The only reason that I had no choice but to outline with a black marker was for you guys to be able to see it when you're looking at the video. But I would rather you just do with pencil, because even though he did use like loads of color, it's not looking like a cartoon. The black outline kind of gives it the cartoon effect or coloring page effect, and I don't want that. I want it to still look soft. So just keep it with a pencil. If you did in fact outline it with black, then I suggest you restart, because that's not what we're going for. We're going for kind of a more natural look. Again, we are making sure that when you are drawing it, just like the previous video, it sort of has a lightly pinwheel effect, because these are not brand new sunflowers. You can tell from this one particularly that these sunflowers have been out on his maybe desk and vase, and they've been sitting there for a while. So this one actually lost its petals. So let's go zoom into this one. So actually, when we look at Vincent van Gogh, and I'm going to color this how Vincent van Gogh would have done it, he actually had this a lighter brown, and then the middle part was chocolate brown. Okay, so I'm coloring this like he would have colored, he would have painted it. The reason we're not doing that is because when we have meat and we actually paint, we'll actually add that lighter brown. But if you were to color it like Vincent van Gogh, then this part in the middle would be darker, and this would be lighter. And then you might want to add sort of like if you were doing fur, some little lines over here. And again, you're coloring yellow, and you're going to be shading it with a little bit of brown. You should see some lines in that brown. And soon I will be doing this one, tackling that one over there. So for that one, I don't think he used, I don't recall seeing like a bright green. It was more of a sort of olive kind of green. If you have the olive green, that's great. If you don't, you can kind of create it with a dark green and maybe a slight touch of brown, but very, very light on the brown. So I'm going ahead and coloring that part right there. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So here I'm actually going to go, again, for that part, darker brown, and go here a little lighter. Can you see that? A little lighter with that brown. And I can add more of that chocolate brown there. And how we're going to achieve that olive green is going by a regular green, not going too dark. This is actually a little bit on the darker side, actually. It's not like a bright, bright, bright green. It's more like a pine green, which works. And I'm going to add some of that caramel brown a little bit on top, just very lightly. So it can kind of create that olive green. If you have this kind of green, let's play around with it. If you have this kind of green, it's a beautiful green, but it's not the color that we're going for. If we add more brown to it, it would have that sort of olive effect. But I kind of like the pine green a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, you could add a little touch of brown to that if you want it to look more like an olive green. Let's go back to these petals over here. And we are going to go with the brown, making lines. We want to still see that bright yellow on some sections and just kind of create like lines. And we can probably, when we do in fact paint, maybe we can add a little bit of paint to that as well, so it can look like little brush strokes. We will be cutting these out. So the tricky part will actually be cutting out those stems. We're not there so far. And this I put a little bit too much brown, so I'm gonna try to fix it. Let's see where we are with time. Okay, so this is what we got so far. And if you look close, I actually like this one better, and I like the idea of painting that later. This, I don't think it fully captures Vincent van Gogh. So I'm gonna go ahead and color all of that chocolate brown because I think that would make more sense. And when we paint it, it'll just work much better. And because we put the brown, it's not fully getting as dark as this section over here, but that's okay. Now let's go to the vase because we might have some time for the vase. I'm going with peach. So I'm going to first go with the peach and color it going from up to bottom. Again, trying to get every bit colored. It's not going to stay fully peach because, again, Vincent van Gogh didn't use one color in one section. It's alluding to shades, maybe an angle that the sun is hitting. So now I'm going to go with my medium brown and I'm going to just go right over here. And now I'm going horizontal and I'm going to the side. And I'm not going so dark. If you can see that, there's some shading there. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Not so dark. And over here, I'm going to go a little bit darker. I'm going to go now with sort of a different kind of brown. This one's more like a mustard, and I'm going more in. Now here, I'm going a little bit top bottom. So it could look a little bit more solid. And maybe go a little bit like that. Again, emphasizing more on one side. And let's go look at